Peter. Well, hello and welcome to Tea Talk. We are in for some great discussions. This today we've had a really soul searching and all kind of things this past week. As you know, we had an election and we have a new president. America has voted and the voices of Americans are loud and clear, but there are some reasons that we want to ask ourselves why they voted that way. Why? What do we think happened? There was a song once I said, "What's really going on? What's going on?" Y'all remember that song, "What's Going On?" I asked myself, Lord, what is going on with America? What is going on with my friends and the people that I know or that I thought I knew? What is really going on? For one thing for sure, we know that there's something going on that we did not get. And we better get it together, or else we're going to have a whole life of these kind of surprises. So, what I did, I wanted to talk, and we all wanted to kind of talk this thing out. So, I invited some of my friends on that I've been talking with about it. And so, they're going to come on and talk to you about what their stance is on about it. So, send your questions in, send your comments in. What do you think? And we would love to hear them and pass this message on to others. So make sure you also get anybody else who's want to talk about the lecture. Tell them Lady O is on, and we're about to talk about what really happened, what's really going on with America. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my first guest, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. But Mr. Otis is a welcome to Tea Talk. We're just so glad to have you today and to give us some insight. So what's going on? What's really going on?
Thank, thank you so much, Lady O. And you know how much I love talking to you on Tea Talk and Bishop O and everyone else that's here as well, too. My name is Otis Evagaro. I am the treasurer for the Texas Democratic Party and used to be the chair of the Harris County Democratic Party. And so we had an interesting night on Tuesday. America spoke. We respect the decision first and foremost. I think that's really important when we're talking about democracy because we always want people to respect our decisions when things change, right? I find it very funny that there was no illegal voting going on with
When
this
you win, it's nothing illegal about it. Yeah, when
right,
you win,
right,
everything is right. It was legal.
right. I find it interesting that we were able to have a safe and secure and an election with a lot of integrity in all of these places that he won with really close vibes. But listen, the American people spoke. This is what they wanted. You're going to see the United States Senate flipped over to Republican control. The White House is now under Republican leadership. And I surmise that we won't know the results yet, but I think that the Republicans may hold on to the House. What simply happened, and also too, I want like the audience to be very clear on this. We still need a lot more data to let us know what actually really happened. This is very fresh off vid. There's states that'll still be counting votes because of mail ballots, military ballots, absentee ballots. So we have to be very careful about our analysis of what went on. A couple of things in my mind that happened. One, you try to do a 2.5 year campaign in 3 months, it's an impossible task. It is. It is a very impossible task. Kamala Harris was put in a very difficult position to get this country galvanized in 3 months and understand her policy positions and where she was coming from. It was just really tough. Another thing that was clear, people didn't know who she was. Do y'all know what the top Google search was on election day? Did Joe Biden step down?
Wow.
Like there's
Are you
there
serious?
Yes. And this is something that a lot of us have been talking about is that, people, there's a bubble and we assume that people know and they don't. They just don't know. You go ask somebody who the president is and you would be shocked the answers you would get because they just don't know. Right. And that's what happens when you're running an election in 3 months. And then I think, also too, we've got to make sure that we're talking to people about the issues that matter to them. Right. Like you've got to talk about issues like the economy is going to be a big part of this. Healthcare is going to be a big part of this. Public education is going to be a big part of this. The border, living in a state like Texas, is going to be a big part of it. So there's some missed opportunities. And then the other thing that I would say is that, again, she was in an impossible situation. If you look at every county in the country, Kamala Harris didn't outperform Joe Biden in not a single county. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that speaks to deeper things. And listen, I'm a Black man in America. I know very well there's also some underlining issues that happen in this election as well too. We are
Mhm.
not going to be deaf, blind, or immune or stupid to that fact. But there are some other things that also are underlining issues. And like I said, 2.5 year at minimum campaign, you do it in 3 months is an impossible task. People didn't know who she was, and she couldn't outperform Joe Biden. And then to give credit where credit is due, Donald Trump bumbled and rumbled his way into speaking about things that resonated with people and they thought that that was a thing. The sky is not falling though. And that's what I also really want to say is that the sky is not falling. Listen, wave elections happen all the time. If you're a Democrat, you know what Republicans felt like in '08.
Oh
And
my
oh,
goodness.
Barack
Well, they
Obama got
showed us with their
the Senate and the
actions
House.
for the whole time, they did
Right.
not behave.
Right, right. So you know how they felt now. So we're on the other end of that. This happens in this country. And so what we have to do is we've got to go talk to the voters, right? The people that are going to represent us, talk to them about the issues that happen and talk to them about solutions. You know, one of the things that is disheartening with the Donald Trump victory, in my opinion, is that, you know, you're doing it with grievances and complaints. And that doesn't set up the country for success in the long term. What set up the country for success in the long term is leaning in with solutions. And I think we'll be able to do that and regroup on the left side, my side, and figure it out. But in a quick snapshot of just the things I've been a privy to and talked to people about, that's what you see. That's what you saw happen. It's just an impossible situation for her. She ran a very, very good campaign. Donald Trump ran the campaign, and clearly the country responded, voted for him. And so we'll see what the next 2 years looks like before we head into a gubernatorial and midterm cycle in 2026.
Okay, very good. Well, listen, you did a lot there. And I think one of the things that I wrote down that you said that I have surmised that was a big, big problem is assumption. We assume the people knew that Biden was still president, and they weren't. They didn't know. A lot of them are out of touch. They don't watch certain things. They don't listen to certain things. They're working day and night. I remember growing up as a child, we only watched one station. That was the station. We didn't watch the news station. We watched the what do you call it? The Ride in the Rope and the Westerns. We love the Westerns and we love I Love Lucy and stuff like that. So we didn't watch what's going on in the news. And so we assume that people do. Okay. But one of the assumptions that I am going to take very seriously about even things I put on T Talk, that we assume people know. Like, for instance, how the government works. You just kind of went through something and we assume that people understand what we're talking about. What power does the Senate have? What power does the Congress have? What power does the president have? Those three branches of government. And why it was important that we get one of them at least. Can you explain that real briefly? Is it too long?
No, no, no. Listen, and truth be told, I mean, it's the truth. I mean, part of the reason why, if you're a Democrat or Republican, because I do have to always think like, hey, we got to be as nonpartisan as we try to be. But if you have the White House, right, that's the executive part of what's going on, and they have the ability to command our military services and things like that, and then create executive orders that is outside the purview of our legislative branch, which is the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House. The U.S. Senate, their job is consent and confirm. So what I mean by that is, like, let's say the president gets to nominate judges from the Supreme Court to federal appointments. The president will nominate. The Senate is the one that confirms and consents those appointments. In the U.S. House is where you have more of your legislative pieces. What does the budget look like? What does a Chips and Science Act look like bringing more jobs? And they
Right.
work together. The Senate and Congress work together. Now, the reason why a president is going to want both chambers, right, is because they can pass legislation really easy.
Whatever they want, whatever
Right.
whoever they want in there, it's going to be a signed stamp. Especially, this is what they were talking about with no guardrails. If you have the legislative, the judicial, and you're the executive, and you run things like I won't say a mafia, but like whatever, that you have a rubber stamp, then whatever you want goes. And that's what people were trying to get in there to say, hey, we got to get from the bottom all the way down, vote for your governors, vote for your senators and people don't know that. We're assuming they do, but I really think they don't. But we
Right.
will
And
see.
if you're in the opposite party of who's in the White House, you want to make sure you get one of those chambers because it can block, legislation
Everything.
that they may not agree with. The one thing though that you can't block if the party is the same in the in the White House and the US Senate is these judicial appointments. And that's where the Supreme Court comes into big play, because now all you need is a simple majority in the US Senate, and then you can make that lifetime appointment on the Supreme Court and those federal benches. So,
Wow.
it's just it's unfortunate, because one of the things that we don't do anymore is teach civics in high school and middle
Yeah,
school,
they
elementary
took
school.
that out.
It's
Mhm.
important to elect really good school board members like Bishop O,
They
right?
took that over. Come on.
In the state
They're checking
legislature.
off the list of things that they need to do to control everything.
Everything, right. And so that's why those things are really important.
Well, listen, the next thing I want to do, because I know you got to go before I get to my other guests, I know with you being there as a part of the Democratic Party, and we're doing a whole lot of soul searching about what our Democratic Party leadership is doing. Or I've heard a lot of things. Are they taking the churches for granted and the Black people for granted? They're going to vote Democratic no matter. We don't have to perform. They put us up. I mean, have you heard anything about the Democratic Party making some changes or shifting before you go? Can you talk to me about what are is the Democratic Party talking about?
Well, we don't have a choice. I mean, we don't have a choice. I mean, we got shellacked. Is
Yeah,
the
we
best way
did. Yeah, we
to say
did.
it.
What happened? What happened?
I, I've been making this comment to people, and I think you all will appreciate this. Listen, growing up, we got spankings, and when you got spanked by your parents, and my mom and dad used to do this all the time. When we get spanked, it wasn't just enough that you got spanked. You had to sit there and think about what you just did to get that spank.
Yeah.
And the
Well, we
Democratic
got a whooping. We didn't get a spanking. We got a whooping with an
whooping,
extension cord.
whooping spank. Yeah, to me, it's
The
the same.
Democrats got a whooping with an extension cord. We will have these marks and whips on us for a long time.
Lady,
Go
y'all,
ahead.
I'm
I'm
trying to
sorry. Just had to correct you.
remember.
We don't get spankings. We got a whooping.
I'm trying to keep it as half
I
glass
know.
full as possible.
I
You know,
appreciate that. I sometimes I just try to keep it real, but
no,
you
no,
go ahead
I'm
and
with
do it. You're
you.
the right one. This spankings. Okay, we get spankings in time. We're
Listen,
in timeout. Are they
yeah,
counting five?
because I'm trying to make sure. I also want people to understand that the sky is not falling. It
Yeah,
really is.
yeah.
Listen, there are going to be segments of our population that will be hurt because of Trump policies, in my opinion. Yes, but the sky is not falling. It could be much worse. I think the one thing that we have to realize is that in these battleground states, we lost by 1 or 2 percentage points, right? There were still Democrats that won statewide, but they just lost the presidential. So there's a lot of things that we still have to glean from. And again, we don't have all the data points. What I will tell you is that from my Democratic friends and from our left-leaning organizations, yes, there's got to be tough conversations. We've got to get back to talking about kitchen table issues, right? It's not just enough to talk about reproductive freedom. Yes, that is great, but that can't be the message. It
Right.
can be part of the message. It can't be the message.
Key
We've got
message.
to talk about public education. These school districts in
A
Texas
whole
are
lot of
facing
things.
a deficit.
But we can't do it until we get the party straight. And I mean, it's a lot, but we're gonna have to have a section too. But let me just say this real quickly as I move on, because I've got some other guests here that have some really great things they need to say. But the assumption, remember that word assumption, because I heard something this morning that checked me when they started talking about it's the economy stupid. They always say it's the economy. And I'm like, the economy is doing well. Why do I think the economy is doing well? Because I'm doing well. I don't have to go to the store and worry about what the cost of butter or bread or what. I just put it in my card and I pay it. I don't have to worry about my rent going up 2 and 3 times because I own my own home. And this has been the same thing for almost 30 years. So people that are living in apartments, single parents and working class people, those people, we think they've got it, but they really don't. We're assuming that they know. We're assuming that they have. We're assuming that it offended them, and it did not offend them. They elected him knowing all of the dirt. So that says a lot. But well, thank you so much for coming. Was there anything else urgent you needed to say to us before you leave?
No, yes, I greatly apologize. I have to leave early because there's a whole lot of other stuff going on here in the state of Texas that we've been dealing with today. But what I will say is that again, hope, hope, hope. I'm an eternal optimist. Listen, we just got to go back and regroup. Like I played sports growing up my whole life. When you get beat 44-3, you know why you got beat that bad. So you just
Watch
got
the
to go
film.
back. And just have those conversations. We'll regroup. We'll be fine for those who believe the way we believe, and the sky is not falling. And I promise you, there's a lot of smart people who will be looking at the data, that'll be talking to voters, that'll be doing this stuff and talking to folks and saying, hey, let's get back. Because listen, in 2020, we weren't supposed to win either. In 2022, we weren't supposed to win, and we got the U.S. Senate, and Democrats were able to stave off the big losses in the U.S. House. So again, I know it feels and
Yeah.
seems like that, but the data, I promise you, is going to bear out to tell a different story, and we just have to go regroup. We've got to make sure that we're having a head in this and not just feeling off of vibes and emotion, but actually looking at the strategy of things.
Well, our message to the Democratic leaders who lead us here in this county and this city and this state, that y'all need to get it together, because we're following your leadership. And so, everything rises and falls in leadership. So you need to get some, this is my own personal thing, get some young folk in there. We need to have some people that you all are training to take your place. And I'm saying, take this message to them that they need to get their stuff together, because something went on. We had it, and we lost it like that. We should not have lost like that. This woman worked her heart out in 3 doggone months, worked a miracle. She could have been in there, but some things that happened upline didn't happen. And so I'm just saying to the Democrats, take that message back, that they need to get their stuff together before more Democrats started going to the Republican Party or developing their own party. Frankly, I would like it if we didn't have a party. Just put the people up there, and all this money and stuff like this crookedness, and the best person wins. Okay, I'm through. Well, thank you so much for being my guest. You can tell I'm a little passionate about, I got a whole bunch of things, but let me let my guest come on and say, thank you for coming, Mr. Otis.
All right, y'all. I'll talk to y'all soon.
Okay, bye-bye. Bless you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we definitely need to talk to him.
Yeah, we do. We got to talk. We got to talk some more.
He is fun.
Okay. Mrs. Aljanita Scott Davis, our dear friend for I don't know how many years, we're going to date ourselves, okay? Who's an attorney. Why don't you introduce yourself? I don't want to, and then give us some information. What's really going on here?
I'm Aljanita Scott Davis. I'm not representing anybody. I'm a lawyer who's been licensed to practice law for 50 years, and I've done a lot of community work and community involvement. I've not been in the position to run for a public office. I've always been kind of the ones behind the scenes. And I just really disagree with like 90% of what we just heard. So whenever it is time for me to start talking about it, I know you have other guests who would like to speak, then definitely we want to raise that, because
speak up. That's why I got some people on here.
The sky started falling in 2015.
Come on, keep it real.
And, anybody who thinks that this has not been a long-term campaign from the time to get in the office, when he was out of the office, and then while he is coming back in the office, this has been a long-term 9-year campaign that's been running. And it has been a campaign for the minds of individuals in this country. This is not just some policy stuff. You put up a wall and you say Mexico is going to pay for it, and it doesn't pay for it. You tell 30,000 lies while you are in office, and the lies after, and then you do all of the other things that you had done prior to that time to make you a person of no character. You put in a Supreme Court justice who was allegedly a rapist, and you say, that's just one of those things. You have Bloomberg, who comes in.
He was too. So go ahead.
In 2015, this is the biggest con man on the face of the earth. Bloomberg said that. Okay. And then all of these things, all of the, just going down the list, all your military staff, the people closest to you, say, guys, this guy is unhinged. This guy is a problem. You have Project 2025 that comes out and lists all of these things that are extreme measures of stuff that is supposed to be happening. And you still totally disregard the Christian community, totally disregards the values that we have been raised with, that people have been come up with, that this country is founded on. You disregard all of those values and say, oh, well, no, he wrote me a check back after he ruined the economy by allowing the pandemic to go crazy. Who screwed up the economy? Okay, let's talk about what happened when the economy was tanked back when the pandemic started, and not that he was responsible for the pandemic, but how it was handled and how it was delayed. That contributed to it. It increased the demand. Anytime you have your supply chain broken for years,
Yep.
you are going to have inflation because the demand is decreased, the supply is decreased, the demand is increased.
Well, I look like she's frozen, but you'll be coming back on in a minute. Let me
And
tell you
inflation has
something.
down.
Okay, you froze there for a minute, so we didn't hear about a 3 seconds of what you said. But let me cut in for a minute because you're saying so much stuff that I totally agree with. And I think that's why we've got to dissect what really happened. Because I went through that thing. Number one, like you said, COVID. We have not recuperated from COVID. I mean, the businesses that were shut down, that could not make it, that failed, they are mad. They wanted to be, and it's going to take time. Biden just couldn't do all of this. But I think with that was number one, and how he handled it and mishandled it put us in a further hole of trying to crawl out of COVID. Now, go back and finish the rest of your stuff, but I want to agree with you on that.
And this administration has pulled us out of the economic disaster that happened during the time prior to this administration going in. And that's what they've done. And they had to balance that whole thing with inflation, because inflation is going to come when your prices go up, and your prices are going to go up when there's a supply issue. So this administration has done a very good job of that. Inflation now is going down. The interest rates are going down. Everything is happening positive. But when you run up against a 9-year considered marketing daily barrage of misinformation to people who are not listening to major media, who are not listening and not reading on what's going on, then that constant barrage of stuff, you end up with this total amount of misinformation and people being vulnerable to things like saying, are you better off than you were this time? Than you were like, hell yeah, you're better off now than what you were 4 years ago when he left office. So I mean, but somebody's got to say that out loud and say, let me go back to the whole civics thing and not teaching that. But I mean, over instance after instance after instance, we can demonstrate that communication and the messaging that's been going out, it's almost like a Jim Jones kind of thing.
Okay, let me jump in there for a minute too, but because all of the things that you said, I mean, I hash those over in my mind and still comes back to why. Why would people, after knowing all of this stuff, after them not having, why would they go and vote for this man? So one of the things I thought of was that we were so distracted with the abortion thing that we didn't hear what they were saying. I still cannot buy gas. I cannot afford a decent place for my kids to live. So I think that, and they voted anyway.
Yeah, gas prices are going down.
Yeah, well, look, but let me just say this. Now, this is what the statistics are showing, and I could be wrong, but the ones that I looked at said that they didn't start going down to this last year. Now, I think that the Democrats could have, or her party could have said, this is why they're just going down. Not that we're just going down because we're trying to win. And he put out there, oh, all of a sudden she's been in there all this time. She ain't done nothing. And so now she's trying to do something so she can win. That's not what happened, but that's the spin they put on it. And our group did not defend that and say what's really going on. We're rebounding from COVID. So I think you're right. I think he is so magnificent. Is that the right word? Okay. In distracting, diverting. Yep, he is that too. But go ahead. What'd you say?
Bloomberg called it the con artist that he
is. Yeah, he's the best con artist.
There is a major method of communicating that we're not a part of.
Come on. And we're assuming
a whole different kind of news, a whole different kind of thing. I mean, Elon Musk is not up there jumping around like a chimpanzee for nothing. Okay.
But he just got how rich? They say on the day of the election, I think he got 160, what was the bishop, $1 billion?
60, the top 10 billionaires in the world increased their value by $600 billion
That's
overnight.
Overnight. You hear me? So yeah,
10.
he had a great investment to put all this stuff in there and do the part. And then he's talking about giving him a position in this cabinet.
They're
So
not the people who this country, they're not listening to what we're listening to. They're on a whole different communication level.
right. And we assume they are.
And that whole, I mean, think about the white nationalist church stuff.
Oh my God.
Attacking the black church for being against God.
Right.
You attack my church for being against God? What are you listening to?
And here's the other thing too about the churches, because I'm a part of a church too, that we're so afraid to speak up. And these white churches were going like, you would have thought they were having a KKK rally in some of them, but they are not afraid to speak up. And I know why, because they would come after us, they wouldn't come after them. But I think that the message was not clearly taught to the people, that we assumed that they know everything that we knew, and we assumed that they were offended like we were offended, and we assumed that they knew the whys, and they don't. All they know is, I can't get groceries, I can't get gas, I can't afford an apartment, I can't afford a house. That's what the people, and most of the people that we know, that's not a problem for them.
The issue of housing and housing prices going up and apartment prices going up. I ran Habitat for Humanity for 7 years. And one of the reasons that people would come to get a Habitat house was because their rent was going up. The rent's been going up. Rent always, in fact, who was the candidate that ran on the fact that the rent is too high? That is not something new. It is just how it was messaged. And this whole thing of messaging to say the sky is falling now, and it wasn't falling when you were in, is just a lie.
Yeah, it's just a lie.
30,000 lies that have been told over and over and over again. One more thing,
the misinformation and the disinformation. They mastered on that.
How we are allowed to be used. I think about using the grief of those vulnerable women who came on talking about judges, Democratic judges are soft. This was not about Democratic judges being soft. They ended up taking out 15 candidates, Democratic candidates. But the key wasn't so much that they were the soft on judges, because the only criminal judge they took out was Judge Johnson, and he ain't never been soft on no kind of criminal. Okay. But the reason that the three other criminal courts, those people had never even been on the court. They were brand new courts. Those judges were never even allowed to be soft on crime. But they painted that picture and used the grief of these vulnerable women by painting a picture to say, we're going to take out these bad people who are soft.
That's the one with the lady with the yellow dress on.
5 civil court positions. 5.
We lost 5 on that commercial. And then the other commercial with the gays and the lesbians, they did that. I forgot how much money they spent on those, but I think 30,000 times they ran it or something like that.
Running one because they had somebody on there and they said the person was transgender. The person was not transgender.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think they spent about 60 million on those transgender ads.
Yeah, and it wasn't true.
Yeah, and we're the ones with the values. We're the ones who are kind to people. We're the ones who all put ourselves out to make sure that folks get fed. We're the ones who do that. That's our culture. That's how we were raised. That's how we were done. And we are never soft on crime because we are the victims. Yeah. So this business of painting it like the issue was they were going after that black girl magic stuff.
That was it. That was it.
Nothing to do with soft on crime. It was just this one. And they took out one sitting criminal judge who ain't never been soft on crime. Right. It's the messaging and how that messaging was allowed and how the Democratic Party did not combat that. They did not spend money on that whatsoever. That's why I wanted Otis Ivangura to hear this, because a lot of stuff that they should have spent money on, they did not.
Yes. Now you're right about that, and we're going to have that conversation again with the Democratic Party and Otis and whoever else is dealing. Because I know when Senator West was running, they were putting the money into this other person, and now because we could have had him in the Senate, but they would not even back him. I mean, so. And it's been a long time ago, but I just remember there was something about the party not supporting him or giving him the money because it takes money. And if you got money, you can run those ads. And that's what happened. They had all the money. They had no scruples about telling the truth. They were telling partial truths, half truths, and just outright lies on TV with the money behind them, and people believed it. So that's going to be another show. We're definitely going to have that show with the Democratic Party because there are some things that we need to say, and that's what I was trying to say to him, that you need to go back and talk to them and tell them, hey, we got some things we need to discuss. Okay, so Bishop Ogletree, would you like to go next, or would you like for these young ladies to go next? I know you've got a meeting too.
Let me go. Being a former attorney and pastor, and now bishop overseer, and a former school board member, 18 years. This wave has hit us, and as Anita was speaking, I'm concerned about the derivatives that from the Trump victory in this wave. We have the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and that outlawed segregation. Now, I'm thinking with this new wave that we need to be watchful of overturning that. I mean, it's on the agenda. It's on the agenda. But Charlie Kirk of Turning Point has spoken out against it, and he says this of the 64 Civil Rights Act, that it created a permanent DEI type bureaucracy. And this is something that this new wave of conservatism is going against, and going to be attacking all of that. What the Project 2025 is against, and is this, the deep state, this bureaucracy that has helped and supported achievement in the Black community. I'm concerned about what's going to happen to the contribution to HBCUs. I'm concerned about the Pell Grant. I think we can say right now the John Lewis Voting Rights Act is dead. The George Floyd Justice in Policing Act of 2021 will never come to pass. I'm looking at this wave. I'm not fearful, but I'm looking at the wave and what is going to happen with all of this stuff that we were hopeful for. And gosh, it's going to be an assault. It's going to be assault. The America, quote unquote, has spoken, but it's going to be an assault. Right now, already we're having text messages, the headlines, text messages going out to Black students, racists, telling them to apply for jobs on the plantation. I mean, it's going to be something that we're going to have to fight, speak out against, and that's what I'm concerned about. I mean, I don't know about Anthony, but I'm looking at stuff like that could come down the line. Anything that had anything to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion I'm concerned about layoffs of Black people in certain positions. If they say, hey, we don't have to worry about this diversity stuff, we don't have to worry about all this inclusion stuff. And if they say this guy or this lady is a DEI hire, hey, and there's not going to be any guardrails. Am I overthinking this thing, Hatchet?
Well, I think Bishop.
Right. Right. And
No,
close HBCUs. That's another one of the things.
yeah,
Governor already issued a letter that said DEI is illegal in the state of Texas.
yeah, yeah. So I think that we have got to get a plan book. Like they had a plan book together, and we've got to strategize. And I think that's one of the things that, like I said, going back to that word again, I keep hearing in my spirit, Democrats cannot assume. Number one, we can't assume all Blacks are going to be Democrats and going to vote with us. We can't assume that what he said was offensive to all Blacks. It was not. Some of the Blacks were saying it. So why is that? So I'm just saying we got to go back and do some things. The NAACP, all of the different things we had in the 60s, they got to start working. Okay. It's got to be because we need some people who are leaders that number one, we got to understand what the people want and we got to fight for it. And so I think this whole world, I think you're right, Bishop, that there are some fearful things, but I tell you what, when Obama became president, they were saying the same thing. There were some fearful things that they were going to do. But what did they do? They started working. They've been working a long time.
And Lady O, let me say this from the standpoint of the Black church. I really think we need to come together,
Yeah.
prayer and strategize, because we are kind of left out there as the true defenders of the faith, the true defenders of the good news of Jesus Christ, which
Right.
was directed to the poor, the marginalized, the oppressed. And we're it. We are the
Yeah.
prophetic voice now for America. And we have to really come together and we have to keep preaching.
And Bishop, I agree with you. And also, when I was hearing you speak, and I think that is so much of what we are as Blacks and people in churches and stuff like that. But faith without works is dead. And I think that the works and the planning, the strategy, the people are overlooking the Black church because I think I'm wondering if they feel we're insignificant. We don't need them. If people need you, they're going to come after you like they went after the Hispanics and they went after the Black men and whatever they needed. So I think we got to become relevant and we got to be needed. And I think First Metropolitan, the church that I attend, is doing that. We have some people who are working to make sure that the vote gets out. But now we got to go more than just the vote. We got to look at what the real issues are, because the issues that we gave them, maybe what didn't affect our people, but it affected other people who voted for Trump. So with that, Bishop, if you have anything else to say, I'm going to give you a chance, and I'm going to segue into, Angela, because she's working with the churches and
Yes.
community. Angela, welcome to Tea Talk, and glad to have you back again. What's going on with working with these churches?
Well, thank you, Lady O, for having me. I enjoy being on Tea Talk. As far as what's going on with the churches, again, I'm Angela Martin Greer. I'm the director of PAGE, which is the Political Awareness and Advocacy Group, and our focus is making sure that people have that their voice is heard. And our tagline is turning the page for change. So as far as working with the churches, one of the biggest things that we've run up against with this election was a lot of churches were kind of torn on the position that they should have. Some of the policies on the Democratic side seem to go against the faith. So that people were torn in that. What a lot of folks didn't understand was that giving people the opportunity to make decisions for themselves is not against God. He gives us free will. He gives us the option to choose. he knocks on the door and it's up to us to open. But again, it comes back to people being educated and informed on what the issues are and what they represent. As far as what we saw in the election, I know Otis had mentioned they're still analyzing data, but a lot of the early information is showing that a lot of folks were just one issue voters. They voted according to what was most important to them. And as you mentioned, women's reproductive rights, you have a lot of folks that voted strictly based on that, based on their position on that, and not looking into how the rest of the ticket was going to affect them, how the rest of the policies were going to affect them. I kind of want to go back to some of the things that have already been mentioned
Let
and
me
just
let me jump
provide a
in there
little bit
real
of, sure.
let me jump in there real quickly because you made a point and I'll forget it. But that's the way we voted. But the white women, when you look at the states, they voted for their abortion stuff for them and they voted for Trump. So they made sure the stuff in their state, so they were aware of that and they voted to protect their rights and abortions in their states. I think all of them voted against what they were talking about with this abortion thing, but one state I think still kept it. But for the most part, white women voted to protect themselves but they wanted Trump. Okay, go ahead on.
That's a good point to make, Lady O, because you did have folks that had the referendum on the ballot specifically, like in Missouri. And like you said, there was a state that actually wasn't able to pass it, and that was Florida because they needed 60%. And I think they ended up just shy of that. So the abortion wasn't able to pass as far as them having the right to still have abortion in that state. But the other thing that I wanted to highlight was when we were talking about mis and disinformation. Yes, this has been a long campaign. I'm sure y'all remember back when Trump got elected the first time, he made sure that folks believed what it was his people were saying, even though you could see with your eyes that it was different. The example was, I believe it was his chief of staff, Spencer or Spicer, got up there and said that his inauguration crowd was bigger than anyone else's. And then they showed the picture of President Obama's inauguration crowd and his inauguration crowd, and it was clearly smaller. But they
People
started the
believe what he told
campaign
them.
of, right. They
But
started the
and even the
campaign of,
January 6th thing. I mean, you sit
right.
here and you saw January 6th, and he said it was just a peaceful gathering, love
Mhm.
people, some very nice people, and the people believed it. But you know what? I'm gonna cut you because our time is running a little bit quickly. So get your most important points. I'm coming back to you. But the thing that has to be said after all of this talking that we've done, the people knew all of that and they still voted him in. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and make your last point, and then I've got to bring Sister Jennifer Neal in here for her to speak too, because our hour is getting a little bit late. So what else do you
Okay,
see,
so
or your question or whatever?
okay, so the reason why I brought that up is because the campaign was to get you to not trust the news. The
Mhm.
fake news was the issue. So that's the reason why, even though you were hearing the things that were true, if you were in the bubble of Fox News or Newsmax or On or whatever that might have been, even though that information was coming out, they were already teaching you and training you not to believe what mainstream media was saying. So the
Mhm.
other point I
Mhm.
wanted to bring up was actually two small points. One was that fewer people actually voted in this election than they did in 2020. So even though we had a lot new people register, we also had a lot of people who sat this election out for one reason or another. And as Ms. Davis said, if you didn't counter the mis and disinformation and made it seem like one side was no better than the other, that contributed to it. And if you think about what happened with Hillary Clinton, that was a large part of that. And then the other thing was they didn't bring out the messaging on Brexit. And the reason I bring up Brexit is because it was similar to what's happening here right now. Brexit, when Johnson was prime minister in England, him and his group sold the people a bill of goods. They made them believe that it was going to be one thing. And then when they actually got in there, it turned out to be something else. And then you had a lot of people with buyer's remorse. And they even floated the idea that they would have a secondary election or a special election because now people understood the gravity, but it was too late for that. And so I'm thinking we're going to have a lot of people in this country experiencing buyer's remorse. But as you stated, now is not the time to act as if all hope is gone. It's not. It's just instead of us doing that, we need to realize this is a time for us to roll up our sleeves and get to work. And those are the things that our group is going to be doing. We're actually going to be meeting next week to kind of talk about, we're going to have a debrief as well. And then we're going to talk about what we can do and strategize. And once we come up with a strategy, work with the churches in that regard as well.
In a different way.
So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Angela. Our last guest today is Miss Jennifer Neal, and so she's going to come on. Jennifer, a longtime friend of mine for over 50 years. We're dating ourselves, but hey, it's good to have a friend for that long, and I know her integrity, and I know she's very intelligent to give us some wisdom and her insight. So tell us what you're thinking. What's really going on?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm a retired educator, and thank you, Lady O and Bishop, for hosting this. I agree with everything that's been said. We have a lot of work to do. I believe that VP Harris she ran a phenomenal campaign. I give kudos to her for that.
Yes, she did.
The Democratic Party, we have some issues. I think we need to be creative and forward thinking. We're trying to get into our party a group of individuals that are non-traditional, that go about thinking a different way. We need to be tapped into all types of social medias. VP Harris said that she wanted people to own their own home and give them a $25,000 startup for their homes and a child tax credit. Well, they're thinking for those who have a home, that wasn't an issue for them. But those that can't pay for groceries and just the regular essential thing, it seems that was out of their reach.
Exactly.
So they couldn't put their hands on that. They couldn't even think that in their mind. And another thing, they said that they're on TikTok that my niece and nephew are a part of, that people were turned away because their signatures didn't match. Well, we know that our young adults, a lot of them don't even know how to write in cursive.
They don't write cursive. I sent my grandmother a letter in cursive and asked about it, and my daughter said she hadn't read it because she doesn't read cursive. What do you mean she doesn't read cursive? So and they don't teach it in the school anymore.
They don't teach it. Standardized testing results is the priority. And when we said we have to be creative, we have to listen to our young people. I thank Eddie Bernice Johnson so much that she identified Jasmine Crockett and gave her to us.
Yes.
And I tell you, this girl is awesome. We need more like her. We need our leaders that are 70 or 65 plus now to be looking in their community that they represent, identifying young people, start preparing them, let them talk to the younger people. And as older people, seniors, we're going to have to listen to them and not dismiss their ideas.
Right.
Even if we think it don't work, let's do it anyway to show them, okay, that's why we were trying to tell you that it wouldn't work this way. And another thing they said on social media, that there was a Amish community. Anyway, somebody in the Republican Party identified this community of people. They had problem with the water wells. They paid for the water wells to be dug so this community could have good water, and they voted for Trump.
Exactly. Well, I think those points right there are just on it. I mean, all of you all have done a great job. I think I'm gonna close out with this one thing. And
Lady O, can I say one thing?
Sure. Go ahead, Bishop.
Well, two things. Kamala Harris received, to Angela's point, almost 14 million less votes than Joe Biden. That
14
is
million.
mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
Trump only received 2 million more than he did when he ran against Biden. That's a lot of people who said, I'm not voting.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing, I just got this sent to me already. The superintendent and Department of Oklahoma State of Education is telling the schools to prepare for the destruction of the Department of Education, prepare to not start receiving funds and having oversight. They're already getting ready for this new wave, and this is gonna hit us. It's gonna be interesting.
Well, Bishop, you're absolutely right. And I'll just say this to that part of it. When you were on the school board, they were starting there, coming to the school board, sending people who weren't even in the district to disrupt, to distract, to put fear in us, and also to steal our races. And that's what they did. They put the money in there, and I guarantee the money was coming from somebody who had a lot of money. Okay.
The CRT scare.
Yeah, the CRT, the DEI, all of that. So they put all that in there. I say another word I want you to remember from this segment today. Not only do we assume the wrong thing, okay, we also want you to know that we were groomed, assumed, and groomed. For the past 12 years, the Republican Party has been grooming people of every, like you said, the Amish ranch or wherever it is, people that were not listened to, the, as Hillary said, the deplorables or whoever she want to say. Those people that people have forgotten about, there's a lot of them. There's more people that don't have than do have. And those of us that do have kind of forget because we're out of touch. And so all of the leaderships of these our groups that lead us, the Democratic Party, the NAACP, all of them, they have got to get down and look at those people who they were called on to help, the churches. I'm putting all of them in there, all the leadership groups. But we have been groomed. Here's what we've been groomed to do. We've been groomed to accept stuff that's just outrageous as, oh, that's just the norm. They're just joking. It becomes like if you, like you talked about the Jim Jones thing, if you tell people something long enough, it may hurt at first. And then pretty soon they get used to them calling you the B word and talking this way. Oh, that's just the way they call the women to be. And and so a lot of these people are used to that. But the thing that we've got to do is that understand, and I think they'll understand too. And Trump is going to show himself. You can't put a person like this in a situation like that and he not show who he is continuously. So eventually, I think they will realize that we were sold a bill of goods. He doesn't even have any idea how he's going to do this first thing he said he's going to do about the immigrants. But they just believe he's going to do it and they think he's God because he dodged a bullet and this blood came from somewhere, a ketchup, whatever it was, and he did this, So, they believe everything that he says. And so they have been groomed over the years to do that, to question whether or not something is real, to say, oh, maybe it wasn't. Give you just enough to say, maybe that really didn't happen. Maybe they really were just going in there to try to talk to each other. And so our country has been groomed. And those of us that have not been groomed assume that everybody feels like we do and assumes that everybody knows who we knows. So they're going to vote for us. We just feel like couldn't understand how could they vote for a person like this? We assumed that they really knew who he was. And they knew enough. And I think monies and things were, given out and helped or whatever to do stuff. But anyway, the whole story is, we're out of time and I want to give my guest, I want to thank them for coming on and see if there's anything else that they have that's just really pressing that I missed. But I think the whole thing is that we assumed, and we got to stop assuming that we know our neighbors. We got to stop assuming that because I can go buy butter and stuff and it's not bothering me, that I can pay my house note every month, that people in apartments are getting evicted. There's a lot of homeless people now. So there's a lot of people that are single parent homes, people that are living, in the woods or wherever you want to call them, that are very poor. I guess the word I should say, there are a lot of poor people. They're living everywhere, living in the cars. There's a lot of poor people that we don't get, and they feel like we're not listening to them. They feel like the Democratic Party is higher than them or whatever. And even though the Republican Party is really the one that's like that, they talk in the lingo. They're promising them the world, and they're believing hope from whoever will promise it to them. We just got to reach them. Is there anybody else, any you guests that have anything else to say that I didn't say?
No, man, what, Lady O, thank you so much for allowing us to be on here. But I really think maybe we need to bring back the Democratic Party person. I just saw where the state head of the state Democratic Party has stepped down. And so, I mean, and that was, probably overdue. But I think our county person and what happened with those vulnerable women, I think that needs to be, he needs to answer for that. And we have to really hold people accountable for what happens, but we also have to hold people accountable who didn't get involved in the race the way they should have, because we have some elected officials here who have elected funds who could have been out there in this campaign, and they
didn't do it
to get our folks out in Harris County, and we have those judges. My perspective is one that was president of the bar when Clarence Thomas took office, and how we interviewed him. Now he lied to me saying about what he was such a nice guy. The ripple effects of the election of the presidency will last for 40 years. It is not just this year. It is just, we are still suffering from Clarence Thomas and his wife.
Yep, and his wife. Oh, God. Well, let me just say this too, because that was another point I wanted to bring up too, that this is my own personal feeling, and we'll see if that's right. But I really felt that when we elected Biden, he promised to be a one-term president. Yes. And he promised to be a transitional president. Now, this is what I feel he should have been doing. Day one, he should have been grooming Kamala to take over. But instead, he had her in the back room and bring her out when he wanted to bring her out, and she wasn't ready because he at the last minute put her out there to run. But he should have been grooming her. He should have been teaching her, putting her out there from day one, because he was going to be a 1 year. I think the first problem was he decided to run again, and he should never have done that. He got the Black female in the Supreme Court. He did that. He did this, he did that, but he got to feeling himself and feel like I can run again. At 80 years old, are you serious? That's not what you promised us. So I think, go ahead.
Herself from him. That would have allowed her to distinguish herself from him. And that was the problem. They linked her to him.
Exactly.
And not fair to her, because she was those decisions he was.
Yeah, she was beholden to him. So they asked, what would you do differently? She just that's her boss. And she got the opportunity because of him. So she wasn't going to say that up front like that. But he should have done that. He's been in politics all his life. He should have groomed her for that, had her ready. And with what she did in 3 months, we'd have had her first. We'll see how it comes out. But that's the way I look at it, is that when you get in positions God has placed you in, and the people that put you there, you need to do what you need to do while you're there. That should have been part of his mission, and he didn't do it. So,
and that's what the Democratic Party should look at, telling, look, you 65, start grooming somebody.
That's it.
I mean, that has to be an initiative in the party.
Now, that's it. Now, that's what we're going to do on our second thing, because they should have held him accountable to what he said he was going to do. And the Democratic Party did not do it. They went on about whatever. We look up now, he can't hold out, a doggone conversation. Now we want to throw the person who should have been in there, throw her in there, say, hey, make this money, make this happen. And she almost did. And if he had done it the way it should have been done.
As they said last Sunday, the issue was she was a woman.
She was a woman. And that was a big.
Can he retire now and make her president to complete his term?
Well, now that's what somebody said to us, called us and told us to see if we had a way that we could get the message to him, to tell him, go ahead and make her president so she can be the first Black president, because she's been doing a whole lot more than what he
Yes,
could have
Mhm.
ever done. I agree.
absolutely. I'm
Yeah,
down for that.
she would only be president for a month and a
That's
half.
fine with
That's
me.
okay.
I don't, I think,
Abbott is letting Erica be in that position.
There you
Like,
go.
I
look what
know,
he did.
but
Make it a
I
2-month
don't
term.
know.
You
I
don't think
think
that's gonna work, Bishop?
No, I don't even think the vice president would accept that. I mean, you
Okay.
think about, look at it from her perspective.
I
You're
think
just
she
gonna
needs to be
swear
offered
me
though,
in
at least Bishop. I think it
to
needs to be
do some
offered to her.
ceremonial things for a month. What does that say about me?
I always
I just
felt
don't
that
think
I
it would.
wouldn't mind after
be
all the work
looking
I
like a
did.
DEI, huh?
Okay, all the work
Exactly.
I did,
Exactly.
I would let them do me for a month or whatever, because the history is going to be written this way, and my name is going to be in there. And so, why should somebody else come and get all the accolades of the work that she did in 3 months? She deserves that. I said, put her in there. Anybody got any connections that sees this? Write the president, tell him to put her, you step down. You know, you already.
Aljanita has
Okay.
connections. She can do it.
All right, Aljanita, we gonna talk, girl. We gonna talk, and we gonna get this next section started. So listen, stay tuned. Our time is up and over, y'all, but we gonna get another one together. We're gonna talk to this Democratic Party because we need to hold them accountable, okay?
I'm
Because
trying
they
to
present us.
Clement for Biden right now, so you know who I'm working for.
All right. Well, listen, thank you all so much. You've been wonderful.
Thank
It's a
you.
great team. Listen, share this with someone else. I'm Lady O with the Tea Talk Club, and I'll see you again next Sunday at 3 for a tea with Lady O. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Hold on, y'all. I don't think I did that right. It usually comes up where to stop it. Okay, maybe this is up here. Oh, it's at the top. Stop recording. They'll cut that off. Okay. All right, Bishop, you still here? Everybody else is gone? Okay. Yeah, I thought it was really good. So can you tell Johnny to go ahead and upload it and have it ready? Because he, I know, but he might have some extra time when Quinita's in class that he can do it if he has internet. Oh, that's right. I got it. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Chat, we'll do chat over here. Let's see.